All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're zooming way in on the fundamental unit of life, the cell. But I want you to forget the idea of it being just some microscopic blob. Instead, think of it like what it really is, a tiny, bustling, high-tech metropolis. And you're about to get the full city tour. I mean it. Every single one of the trillions of cells in your body is humming with activity, operating like its own little city. It's got borders, power plants, even essential government. So, where does any good city tour begin? You got it, at the border. Every city has to have a border, right? Some kind of wall that controls who and what gets in and out. For our cell, that's the cell membrane. And we're not talking about just a simple bag here. This thing is an intelligent, super selective barrier. And what's so cool is how simple its basic structure is. It's basically a sandwich made of lipids. The outer layers, the bread of the sandwich, are what we call the heads, and they absolutely love water. But the filling on the inside, the tails, they hate water. And that simple love/hate relationship with water, that's the secret sauce. It's what creates this amazing barrier that keeps most unwanted traffic out. But here's the thing. This city wall isn't made of static bricks and mortar. We call it the fluid mosaic model because it's actually flexible and fluid, with all these different proteins floating around in it like boats on a sea. Some of them are integral proteins. They go all the way through and act like channels or gateways. And others are peripheral proteins, which just kind of sit on the surface, acting like security guards or controllers. Okay, so you've got these gateways, these channels. How does the city actually control who gets a VIP pass and who gets bounced at the door? Well, it really boils down to two main ways of getting things across the border. First up, you've got passive transport. Honestly, the easiest way to think about this is like riding a bike downhill. It's easy, it takes zero energy, things just naturally flow from an area where there's a lot of them to an area where there's fewer. But then you've got active transport. And yeah, this is the complete opposite. It's like trying to push a giant boulder uphill. It's going to cost you. The cell has to spend its energy currency, a molecule called ATP, to force something against its natural flow. And the absolute classic example of this uphill battle is something called the sodium-potassium pump. It's happening in your cells right now. It's a constant trade, and it all starts with this number, 3. That's right, 3 sodium ions. For every single cycle, this little pump burns energy just to actively kick 3 of these guys out of the cell. So it kicks 3 things out. What does it get in return for all that work? Well, that brings us to our next magic number, 2. For every one of those 3 sodium ions it boots out, the pump grabs 2 potassium ions and pulls them in. This constant trade, 3 out, 2 in, 3 out, 2 in, is so important. It creates this tiny electrical imbalance that your nerves need to fire. I mean, without it, your nervous system, it just wouldn't work, period. Okay, so we've checked out border security. We know how traffic is managed. Let's actually go inside the city walls now and see the main attractions, what biologists call the organelles. And our first stop, you can't miss it, it's the biggest building in town, the nucleus. This is basically City Hall. It is the command center for the entire operation. This is where the cell holds its DNA. And you can think of the DNA as the master blueprints for, well, everything the city needs to build and everything it needs to do. Now, blueprints are great, but they're pretty useless if you don't have anyone to, actually read them and build stuff. And that's where the ribosomes come in. These guys are the city's factories. They're these tiny little workers that get the instructions sent over from the nucleus, and they just start cranking out the cell's most crucial products, proteins. And of course, all this activity, the building, the pumping, the controlling, it doesn't happen for free. It needs power. And that brings us to the mitochondria. These are the city's power plants. They take the food you eat and the oxygen you breathe and convert it all into ATP. And ATP is like the city's cash. It's the energy currency that pays for literally everything that happens. So that was a quick tour of our tiny city. Pretty cool, right? But you might be thinking, okay, that's great, but why does this actually matter once I'm done with my biology exam? Well, it turns out this little city is at the heart of pretty much everything in modern medicine. Seriously, if you're planning on a career in any of the health sciences, this isn't just stuff you memorize for a test. This is the bedrock. This is the absolute foundation of everything you're going to do, from the lab bench all the way to the patient's bedside. Here's the bottom line. When things go wrong in the human body, it almost always starts right here, at the cellular level. You know cytology? That's the science of spotting weird-looking cells to diagnose things like cancer. Pathology is often just the detective work of figuring out which part of the city, which organelle, has broken down. For example, if the mitochondria, the power plants, start to fail, you get muscle weakness. If the cell's recycling centers stop working, you get a toxic buildup. See? It all comes back to how well this tiny city is running. And because this is so fundamental, you're definitely going to have to prove you know it on exams. So let me give you a huge pro tip for drawing diagrams. First, be an architect, not an artist. We're going for clarity and speed here, not a masterpiece. Simple, clean lines are your friend. Second, and this is a big one, never cross your label lines. Keep them straight, keep them parallel. It makes it so much easier for someone to read. And third, if you're allowed to, use color. It just makes everything pop and helps the grader see you know exactly what's what. So as we wrap this up, I want you to try and shift your thinking. Don't see the cell as just a list of parts you have to memorize for a test. Instead, visualize it for what it truly is, the actual living machinery that you're going to be analyzing and maybe even helping to fix for your entire career. Because really, every single story in health and disease, it all starts right here, inside this incredible, tiny, bustling city.